I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. The new year brings more deadly violence against Christians in the Middle East. We'll have the latest. And a look back at faith under fire in 2010. Plus, on New Year's Day, Haitians have another reason to celebrate.
Whether we are black, whether we are white, we are equal in the eyes of each and every one.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us, and Happy New Year. Well, it is a year that began with bloodshed in the Middle East and another chilling reminder of the persecution that Christians there are facing. Saturday, scores of people were attending Mass at a Coptic church in Alexandria, Egypt, when a bomb went off outside the church, killing 21 people, injuring at least 80 more. And as we hear from CNN's Ben Wiedemann, it's raised tensions that were already high. And we caution you that some of the images you're about to see are graphic.
Distraught relatives search for victims of the New Year's bombing. In the nearby Mar Morcos hospital, law student Peter Sammy recalls he had just left midnight mass when the bomb went off. There were bodies all over the ground, he recalls. I fell on top of them. I got up and had to walk on top of more bodies to get back into the church. Still in shock, store owner Musa Bashara suffered burns to his legs and face. He struggles to maintain his composure as the nurses attend to him. In the intensive care unit, 4-year-old Karin Bulis's relatives are trying to distract her with snacks and sweets. In addition to second-degree burns to her face, shrapnel tore into her legs. Christian-Muslim tensions have been rising here in recent years. Members of the Coptic Christian minority, which makes up around 10% of the population, have long complained of discrimination at the hands of the Muslim majority. Sameh al-Khatib and his brothers were in their grocery store when they heard the blast. Moments later, he recalls, a mob seemed to appear out of nowhere, rushing down the street, attacking and ransacking Christian-owned stores and properties. He protected himself with an empty soft drink case. Up the street, angry Christians chant, "We want our rights," and then try to break through the police cordon to reach the church. The church is now surrounded by security. Hardly anybody is allowed near it. And that's the problem, many of the people in this neighborhood say, that when the church really needed to be protected, there was no one there to do it. Now the security forces have their hands full trying to keep the anger from turning into violence. Reinforcements have been trucked in from Cairo. Christian storekeeper Raouf Abdel Said insists Muslims and Christians in Egypt can live together in peace, but says what's needed is an educational system that teaches love and tolerance. After the New Year's carnage, those are two commodities that seem to be in short supply here.
Well, Pope Benedict called the deadly attack a vile and murderous gesture. Following his Angelus prayer on Sunday, Benedict said he's praying for the victims and their families and encouraged people of faith there to be firm in their faith. Now, we'll have more on this later on in the show when we hear from an organization whose goal it is to help Catholics who are being persecuted around the world. But just ahead, a look back at missionaries who died in the line of duty last year. That story and the rest of the day's headlines next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up in just a bit, an emotional gathering of Haitians in Brooklyn. We'll take you to it. But first, let's have a look at the day's headlines. Well, January 1st may have been a holiday, but some around the world wasted no time hitting the ground running. First, in London's Westminster Cathedral, 3 former Anglican bishops were received into the Catholic Church. 2 of the bishops' wives and 3 nuns also converted. The 3 bishops will be ordained priests on January 15th. They'll have prominent roles in leading groups of former Anglicans who are converting to Catholicism. Well, here in New York, new Governor Andrew Cuomo wasted no time on his second day in office. Cuomo, along with his 3 daughters and live-in girlfriend, celebrity cook Sandra Lee, attended Mass at the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception in Albany on Sunday. The new governor said he was impressed with Bishop Howard Hubbard's homily, calling it inspirational, and adding that Hubbard's talk about transforming society was relevant. Now, following the Mass, Cuomo issued an executive order requiring employees of the governor's office to take ethics training every 2 years. Well, the Vatican is also cracking down with some new oversight of finances. The finances of the Vatican, that is. On December 30th, Pope Benedict announcing the creation of a new central bank which will oversee all of the Vatican's financial and commercial activities. The Holy See also announced a new law defining financial crimes and penalties for those who violate them. It all takes effect on April 1st. Well, the Holy See also took time out to remember those in the church who died in the line of duty last year. We get details now from Rome Reports.
The Vatican has denounced that during the year 2010, 23 missionaries have died in violent circumstances, 5 of them for religious reasons. The number is much lower from 2009, when 37 missionaries were killed. Among those who were killed for religious reasons is the Italian Archbishop Luigi Padovese, who served as the president of the Turkish Bishops' Conference. He was stabbed by his driver on June 3rd, who according to police had no apparent motive. The Brazilian priest Ruben Almeida Gonçalves was also killed by a man on May 20th after the priest refused to rent the halls of his church. The priests Wassim Sabai and Thayr Saad Abdal died in the October 31st attack on the Syrian Catholic Cathedral of Baghdad. They died while trying to protect local families and children from their attackers. The last one killed for religious reasons is Christian Bekulene, who was murdered in the Democratic Republic of the Congo just for being a priest. The other 18 died during robberies or acts of vengeance. The country with the most murdered missionaries this year was in Brazil, with 5 murders, followed by Colombia with 3, and then Mexico, China, Congo, and Iraq, each with 2.
And finally, Christmas may have come and gone, but the Grinches stuck around in at least one Connecticut town where nativity scenes continued to be targets of vandalism. Matt McFarland has more.
And that's where I put it, and that's where it's supposed to be. And I came every morning, I check it, and it's gone 3 times. And I don't understand why they would take it. You know, maybe vandalism, yes, but stealing baby Jesus.
Each Christmas, Gabe Textera sets up the creche at St. Catherine's Catholic Church in East Windsor. But the centerpiece, a statue of the baby Jesus, is gone. In fact, it's been swiped 3 times over the past 3 nights. Each time the parish put out a replacement, it was snatched.
Just yesterday I came to church, I said, he's gone again. And the 3rd one is gone, so we don't know what's going on. It's a total mystery. Never happened before.
And it's not just here. At St. Philip's across town, someone made off with the heads of the shepherd's sheep. And there's more. East Windsor police say these 3 wise men appeared not in the little town of Bethlehem, but rather in a supermarket parking lot. They've called other departments to see if anyone is looking for missing magi, but so far, no reported thefts. As for the stolen baby Jesus, the parish plans on getting another replacement.
Who the heck would do something like that? What's their purpose, or why would they want to steal the sign of Christmas, okay? Now, you know, it just seems like such a foolish thing to do.
Matt McFarland reporting there. Well, stay tuned, there's much more currents coming up. Just ahead, making sense of the struggle of the church in the Middle East. Welcome back. Well, as you saw at the top of the show, the devastating attack at a Coptic church in Egypt this weekend is another chilling reminder of how Christians in the Middle East live with the threat of violence and persecution. Joining me now to add some perspective is Ed Clancy. He's with the humanitarian group Aid to the Church in Need USA. Ed, thanks so much for being here today on Currents. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, you always wish it was under better circumstances when you're talking about a story like this. Now, the situation in the Middle East for Christians has been tough for many, many years, to say the least. It seems like there's been an uptick, though, in violence here recently. Has it really gone up, or has there just been kind of an increased focus on it?
No, there definitely has been. There's been an increase in activity of violence against Christian people and as well as churches. In fact, in the case in Egypt, the organization Egyptian Institute for Personal Freedom, they counted 52 acts of violence or terror against Christian churches that essentially have gone almost undealt with by the Egyptian government. So it has gone up.
What's the reason for this? Do we even know why the uptick now?
Well, the issue in Egypt now is the government has been for many years trying to quell violence and keep the peace, so to speak. But in some respects, they've also been causing it to go up because they do this thing where they'll go in and arrest people after some sort of action like today, and they will then broker a deal between the offending parties and the offended and say something like, oh, make peace and everything goes away. Right. And they really don't deal with the undercurrents, with the level of violence that's underground. And also in Egypt, there is a strong influence of a more Islamitist core that is trying to do something to push the Christians out.
Right. Well, and Christians only make up, I believe, maybe about 10% of the population
Correct.
in Egypt.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that's really for the Middle East kind of maybe a large number, with some other countries only having just a handful, really, of Christians.
Yes.
You think about Iraq, for example, I mean, with just really a minute number of Christians left there after recent violence. Christians have been fleeing since the U.S.-led war there began. What's the situation there? I mean, of course, there's been a lot of violence there lately as well.
Yes, there has. I mean, there was the bombing a few months ago, but there's this calculated campaign. Essentially, what they're doing in Iraq now is they're sending letters to people, and they're threatening them with violence, and they're saying, if you don't leave, you'll be killed. And then a month or so later, they get another envelope with a bullet in it, saying the next bullet is for you. So it's a campaign of terror to push them out. In the case of Egypt, we have to remember that Egypt was founded by St. Mark. The church in Egypt was in the 1st century. So they have a very long history. And for radical Islam, Egypt is a special place because of its cultural heritage. And Alexandria in particular, because obviously, I mean, I guess it's since the 3rd century BC that the great library was there, and it's been a center of learning, and it's been a port on the Mediterranean and a cultural center for the Arabic world for many, many, many years.
So it holds special significance
Yes.
for a lot of reasons. Well, these, of course, we've talked about all the problems. What are maybe some solutions? I mean, how do things go about getting better in the Middle East? Is it just the governments of these countries? Do they just really have to crack down on this? Or I mean, obviously, I think there might have to be major reforms that take place across a lot of these places.
It's very difficult because many of the governments in the Middle East are very anti-Christian, I mean, to be fair. And while they may not necessarily be radical Islamic in nature, they are anti-Christian. And because of this, it's very difficult for Christian communities to maintain any sort of peace or tranquility or sort of structure. And there's been a diaspora, there's been an exit of the Christian peoples from the Middle East for the last 50 years. I mean, Egypt has been a stronghold. Like you said, about 8 million Christians there, about 85% of them are Coptic Orthodox. And they're actually growing because the current pope of the Coptic Orthodox Church has made an effort to really start strengthening the faith. And this is another reason why it's very fearful for the people in the radical area of Islam, because they see the Christian community strengthening in their faith and understanding of the message of Jesus Christ. And you ask what the answer is, and it's evangelization. It's preaching the message that John Paul started in CC 25 years ago. In fact, Pope Benedict has said that he will have the meetings in his CC of Christian communities in October of this year. And it's a message of coming together as Christians and working together. And in his message on the World Day of Peace, Pope Benedict mentioned that that peace is really at the core of religious freedom, that they go hand in hand, that you can't have one without the other.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's obviously a long road ahead for any sort of progress there, but of course we'll keep it in our thoughts and prayers, the situation in the Middle East. Well, we'll talk to you, of course, tomorrow about other places in the world that need our special attention, and more about your organization as well. Ed Clancy from Aid to the Church in Need. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Well, stay where you are. There's much more Currents coming up. When we return, January 1st is more than just the start of a new year for Haitians. We'll show you why.
We celebrate our Independence Day. That means a lot for us.
Well, a lot of New Yorkers rang in the new year by watching the ball drop in Times Square, and still many more spent the next day recovering from all of the festivities. But Haitians in Brooklyn did what they do every year on New Year's Day. They celebrated their homeland's independence. This year it was a bittersweet occasion, though, as Haiti struggles to recover from last year's earthquake and more recently a devastating epidemic of cholera. All that was on everyone's mind as Haitians gathered to mark their country's Independence Day on Saturday with a mass at St. Vincent Ferrer Church.
Nous sommes réunis aujourd'hui pour une triple célébration. D'abord, pour saluer l'arrivée de la nouvelle année, célébrer la fête de Marie, Mère de Dieu, et commémorer le 207e anniversaire de la proclamation de l'indépendance de la République d'Haïti.
When Christopher Columbus discovered the new world, the new America, he stepped foot in Haiti. There were Indians in the land and they forced them into hard labor, but because they could not work the mines, and so they had to search for slaves in Africa. But people like Jean-Jacques Dessalines, people like Toussaint Louverture, these people said, no, we have to organize ourselves. They said to themselves, we are equal. Whether we are black, whether we are white, we are equal in the eyes of each and every one, and we must get our freedom. And this is what they fought for. 270 years later, are we still free? Economically, no.
Haïti, journée jodia, malade sous cabane l'hôpital. Li malade dans toute colis. Li malade dans toute venue. Li malade dans toute son lit. Li malade dans toute zone.
Unfortunately, this terrible earthquake of last year left the country on its back, but little by little it's starting to rise again. I announced today that the diocesan efforts, we collected over $1,300,000 used in Haiti for the initial help, but also now to reconstruct churches and religious institutions. We're aiming that money at that. So we did our part to support the people morally and spiritually as well as materially.
Bon, nous pas qu'à dire des tristesses. Même si nous avons des mauvais moments, mais nous faisons pour gagner courage, pour nous célébrer l'indépendance. C'est un jour mix.
Même si nous mourons, nous pour nous lever. C'est avec ça, moi, confiance. Nous connaissons Haïti, mourir, qu'on y a même bon Dieu après si c'était Haïti.
The only way Haiti is going to rise again is only if we can come united, all together, and remember our obligation to work together for Haiti.
Bon Dieu a un plan pour Haïti. Il a un plan pour Haïti et il a réussi quand même. Il est tout puissant.
For Haiti, we want to see a year of hope. The path to recovery is going to be long. So we pray for the hope of the Haitian people, but also their patience, and we will do all we can to assist them in recovery, but it will be a long road ahead, and we hope that they don't get discouraged.
A long road ahead indeed. Well, that is it for tonight. Now, in the meantime, remember, we're always online over at currentsny.net. You can also follow us on Facebook and on Twitter as well. Now, if you have a story idea, or you might just want to get in contact with us for something else, just to say hi maybe, drop us a line. Our email address is dropusaline@currentsny.net. Until next time, I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night.